Peter Williams. I'm here to present to you on the NHS AI Lab and what we've been doing over the last year since funding was announced back in July 2019, and how we've gone about setting up the lab and what our main programs of work are. So if you can bring up my presentation, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. So I think we all know that artificial intelligence has got the potential to make some significant difference in health and care settings through its ability to analyse pretty large data sets and large quantities of complex information. And we're already seeing that there are some great applications of AI technology across many industries, but I think a lot more needs to be done in order to fully harness the benefits and the use of AI safely and ethically at scale across health and care services. So the NHS AI Lab has been created to try and address that challenge by bringing together various parts of government with health and care providers, academics, and importantly, technology companies. The main sort of focal point for the lab is accelerating the safe adoption of AI to the front line of health and care. I think there's a couple of very important words in that sentence, safe being the most important, and I'll get on to that a little bit later on, but also the acceleration, because this is a technology that does move relatively quickly, and I think it's fair to say that the health and care sector has historically lagged behind some other industries historically, but we're working very hard now to ensure that we're keeping up with the pace of innovation. So there are several areas that I want to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about all of the AI Labs programs because I don't have enough time, and I could go on for hours about it. I'm going to talk about four of the programs and a couple of other bits thereafter. So first thing I'm going to cover is the Health and Care Award, and then talk a bit about the AI Skunk Works, the AI regulation ecosystem, for which I'm sort of overseeing and responsible for. Very important program in AI in imaging, and I'll sort of mention how that came about and what we're trying to achieve. There's two other programs that are being led by the Department of Health and Social Care around this. One is the Accelerating Detection of Diseases program, which is enabling the use of polygenic tests and available data to help screening programs identify patients most at risk of disease. There's also a multiple long-term conditions or multi-morbidity program being led out of the department as well, which is using AI to identify disease clusters to enable research into underlying causal pathways. So just moving on, so the AI in Health and Care Award update. So this the Health and Care Award, we've just run the first round of it. Essentially, it's run by the Accelerated Access Collaborative in partnership with NHSX and the National Institute for Health Research. Overall, it's making £140 million available over 3 years, and that's to help accelerate the testing and evaluation of the most promising AI technologies, which meet the strategic aim set out in the NHS long-term plan. So the first round was launched earlier this year in January, and it focused on 4 key areas. They are screening, diagnosis, decision support, and improving efficiency. We received a really good number of applications and some really interesting areas to explore. So we've got 531 applications in total, and overall, following all of the long listing and short listing, 42 applications are being funded across the phases 1 to 4. So these are a range of exciting and innovative technologies that are from the very early stages of research, which we're calling sort of phase 1, all the way through to the phase 4 programs, which are those technologies which are ready to be deployed and evaluated in a clinical setting and potentially scaled up. It's a very exciting time. We're just running through all of the contracting with the various companies, and we're now looking to open the next round of the award, which will happen, I'm told, hopefully in November So I've said autumn 2020, but I'm confident I can now say that will open November, and you can find out more detail about that on the NHS AI Lab website or on the AAC website through the NHS website. The second thing I wanted to talk about is AI in imaging. Now, this has been quite a big focus for us over the last, I'd say, about 6 months. It feels a lot longer than that. So during COVID, some of the activities and programs within the lab were put on pause and put on hold for a short period, and we pivoted some of our focus to respond to the pandemic. We thought it was very important. We were receiving an awful lot of offers from a lot of different technology companies with different products claiming to be able to help with COVID. We were almost inundated with offers, and it was really important for us to be able to start to assess and understand whether some of these products could be of real benefit to the system, be a benefit to clinicians in their work, and to be a benefit in patients in their outcomes. So we've set up something called the National COVID-19 Chest Imaging Database. So that's a database that essentially it comprises of chest X-ray, CT and MRI scans and other relevant clinical data points for patients with suspected COVID-19. We've created a database that's been set up particularly quickly, and it's all anonymized data, and we're working with various partners across the system in order to collect that data, including the Royal Surrey and a few others. So we've managed to stand up a data set in absolutely rapid time. It's now got over 10,000 patients' images in that database and over 35,000 images, and it actually represents the largest national imaging database with images in it in the country. I don't want to make any further claims about Europe or the world, but it is a very, very large database. Now, that is specifically being set up to do a couple of things. So number one, to train new AI products against that may be able to help in the effort against the pandemic, and also then a separate database to then validate models against, which is massively important. So this database, we've now provided access to a very robust governance model to 7 different developers, and more are applying to it all the time. They are now training up their algorithms to try and help with the diagnosis of COVID and with the triaging of potential COVID patients. Really important piece of work. It's opened a much broader discussion, which is really important actually, about a lot of AI is particularly good at this stage. You know, the fixed algorithms are particularly good at identifying potential anomalies or changes in images. So it's opened a broader discussion with a lot of different partners across the system about the potential to set up an imaging database and platform. So that sort of on this slide is around how we create the data pipelines in order to collect both the image and clinical data at a national scale, and how we might go about automating some of that data collection to ensure that it's not burdensome for trusts. And then how we set up a trusted research environment, and that's to provide access to that national scale data in order to train, build AI products, and also to then have another sort of separate independent data set to validate models against. And we're going through a discovery phase with a range of people at this stage to map out what this could all look like. We're also hoping that it would have a deployment platform as part of that, to be able to deploy validated algorithms back into a clinical workflow, back into a PAC system for doctors and radiologists to use and assess. And it's worth saying that they would all then go through a prospective evaluation as they're deployed. Excuse me. So the next bit I wanted to talk about briefly, I'm conscious of time, is AI Skunk Works. So we've set up a Skunk Works in the lab, and this will be a team of multidisciplinary team of data scientists, engineers, and data curators to try and trial innovative ideas for AI across health and care. I think it's really important that this team exists and is able to take ideas from scratch to a proof of concept, and enable innovators to draw on the expertise they need and when they need it. It's at its very early stage. We're just going to we're just recruiting to the head of the AI Skunk Works, and you'll be able to read more about that on the AI website. So moving on quickly, I've just had a note of the time that's left. AI regulation programs. Now, this is massively important to ensure that technologies are safely deployed, which is what I said earlier. We want to ensure that every algorithm that is deployed into the system is safe to use and that it has a very high level of specificity and does what it says on the tin, essentially. So we're working with the health and care regulators on a range of different programs. We've discussed this at length with NICE CQC, MHRA, and the HRA. There is a feeling that at the current time, the regulations themselves are pretty robust, and we've got some quite high bars to pass. But actually, it's quite a disparate system. So the advice comes from different places at different times and can be slightly complex for some organisations to navigate. So we're working with all 4 agencies to set up a multi-agency advice service that's going to offer support for innovators, and that will be a sort of a one-stop shop to offer that advice when required to any innovator with its own web portal, and that's going to be aligned to the innovation service that's been developed by NHS England. A second programme is streamlining the technology review, so speeding up the process of reviewing applications for medical devices between the HRA and the MHRA. There's a third one on technology vigilance, so there's currently a yellow card system in place. We're looking to enhance that yellow card system to span all incident types and provide research into novel AI signal detection techniques across medicines and devices. Really important piece of work, and I think has been needed for a number of years now. And also finally, we're working on synthetic data of the MHRA. So this is building on their existing work, which is essentially they've developed some synthetic data sets which mimic ground truth data so closely that it can be used to validate algorithms, including AI algorithms. So that work should be complete by next year. Moving on quickly. So we've been doing some international work, and I'll touch on this very, very briefly. We've worked with the Global Digital Health Partnership. If you're unaware of them, they have a website. It's a collaboration of, I think, 30 different countries now to help innovate and transform health services internationally. Really important piece of work that's happening with them. We're one of our directors chairs one of the work streams, and we've developed a paper on AI, which is a white paper which will be published in the future. We're also doing quite a bit of work with the World Health Organization as well. Next piece is an AI virtual hub. So we're trying to develop a community of practice, which is a space for people in the NHS to come together around AI. Now that has gone live already, so I'll share the link to that in the chat shortly. But it's an opportunity for people to get involved and join discussion forums, share knowledge, experience, share ideas, and pose some questions. And everyone in the lab is on the hub and can answer some of your questions. So I'll share that link shortly. There is a wider context for AI and data. So there's a whole range of things that are going on across the health and care landscape. the Office for AI has produced this quite wonderful chart trying to set out all of the different areas that are ongoing at the moment. I won't go into that in detail, it would take far too long, but it's just to give an idea of just how much is going on across the system and how much investment is going into all of this as well. And so finally, I just wanted to mention data strategy. So as we all know, the availability of access to high quality representative data sets is absolutely vital to train and validate AI algorithms. You might be aware that the National Data Strategy has been published by DCMS, and that was published on the 9th of September. So NHSX is now working with system partners to develop a data strategy for health and social care. That is quite a rapid process, and there's a lot of organisations heavily involved in its development. I think there's an event, an engagement event tomorrow to discuss with a range of system partners on exactly what that strategy should include. Okay, so finally, just any questions, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all.